We must protect free speech, and free speech only matters. It's only relevant when it's someone you don't like saying something you don't like, because obviously speech that you like is that's easy.
Any mildly perceptive user of X would have noticed the incessant veneration of Elon Musk as the patron saint and savior of free speech on the platform. This trend, which is a fallout from his announcement to purchase Twitter back in 2022, has only gotten worse since he bought the social media site.
And I loved being out there, and I met Elon Musk, who I've never met before. It was very cool. He is truly larger than life. He came backstage, and it's like, oh my God, it's like the seas parting. There's Elon. And we had a very nice exchange. I said, I shook his hand and I said, thank you for saving free speech in America. And he said, same to you, which was very sweet.
With his promise to save free speech, which was on the brink of extinction before he came along, he has since relaxed rules around the censorship of content containing anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, misogyny, hateful behavior, and generally being a dickhead, while weirdly instituting censorship on words like cis.
This guy on Twitter objects to being called cis and cisgender, and Elon Musk got involved, and he said, but actually the words cis and cisgender are deemed slurs on Twitter if they're used in a harassing way.
In this video, I'm going to be revealing how Elon Musk, a billionaire tech edgelord, appropriated free speech, using it to his advantage while failing to deliver on the promises of free speech. The word appropriation is usually used to refer to a situation where a person or group claims ownership of a thing for their benefit when they have no right to such claims, often at the expense of those who own said thing. Such appropriation is usually done in a manner that is considered disrespectful, inappropriate, and without the acknowledgement of the rightful owners. Perhaps the most widely known example is cultural appropriation, a concept I find somewhat invalid because nobody truly owns any culture. Culture is a shared human experience that is dynamic and changes from time to time and from place to place. Now, that being said, let's assume for the purpose of understanding the point I'm trying to make that cultural appropriation is a valid concept. If we go by that assumption, then we can see clearly how Elon Musk has captured free speech without acknowledgement and respect, while acting in a manner that is harmful and deleterious to the principles of free speech. His behavior is the very antithesis of free speech, yet he continues to pose as its champion. To understand how this happened, we must go back to the beginning of Musk's political history. Many people have the false impression that Elon Musk started out politically left of center. That sort of impression made him popular amongst progressives, many of whom supported him because of his foray into electric vehicle manufacturing. In their mind, Elon Musk ushering in affordable EVs would be a way to combat climate change, as EVs would eventually come to replace gas-powered vehicles. Earlier on, Elon Musk was an advocate for combating climate change. He previously supported Hillary Clinton's campaign promises on the environment and climate change, and once tweeted that climate change is real, leaving Paris is not good for America or the world. Now, it could be that this was all posturing to gain support for his EVs, which most people interested in buying a Tesla back then thought was going to help solve the climate issue. This is not a far-fetched idea, given that he's made a complete 180 on the climate issue. Elon Musk has a history of playing all sides in politics. Over the years, he's donated to Democratic candidates almost as much as he has to Republican candidates. He donated $2,000 each to George W. Bush and his 2004 Democratic challenger, former Secretary of State John Kerry. Musk also donated to California Democrats up and down the ballot, but still gave the National Republican Congressional Committee, NRCC, $25,000 ahead of the 2006 midterms. Musk, the businessman, wasn't going to allow all his political eggs remain in one basket. He courted them all in the hopes that he would be in the good books of whomever wins. Even though Musk now supports Trump, he was initially skeptical of him, saying in October 2015 that it would be embarrassing if Trump won the GOP nomination, much less the presidency. Again, his skepticism of Trump may have been a calculated move. If he thought Trump had no way of winning, there would have been no incentive to support him, kind of like how he threw his weight behind Ron DeSantis, thinking the younger Republican was the future of the Republican Party. The evidence shows that Musk has always been a small government type of guy who advocated for laissez-faire economic policy. So his perceived left-leaning political stance was a facade at a time when he didn't have that much wealth, power, and influence. But as his wealth and influence grew over the years, he's become increasingly right-wing to the point that he's now distinguishable from far-right conspiracy theory brain griper trolls.
What is my problem?
He's lost any appearance of progressivism and has attempted to remake himself in a new image. And in trying to achieve this, he found something that his potential new base really cares about, or at least pretend to care about: free speech.
Free speech is meaningless unless you allow people you don't like to say things you don't like. Otherwise, it's irrelevant.
See, because leftist/progressive ideals seem to dominate US institutions such as the media and academia, many right-leaning people saw their views and positions marginalized to the extent where they felt they were being silenced. In their thinking, the only way for them to regain their voice in culture was for free speech to be reinstalled. They longed for the good old days where all ideas had equal say in culture. To what extent that ideal ever existed is debatable, but safe to say they believed it once existed. Elon Musk is in his purest form a capitalist and an opportunist. He perhaps has a sense for where cultural or business tides tend to flow before they do, and thus strategically positions himself to take an easy ride on the wings of fortune. Evidence of this strategy can be found in how he staked his early claim in the nascent EV market and has come to dominate it in the US.
I'm Elon Musk. I'm the chairman and the product architect of the company. The reason I funded Tesla is because I think it's very important that we accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles.
Similarly, he read the cultural winds of the US and saw that it was going to flow in the direction of right-wing reactionary conservatives, and for years he's worked to position himself to curry favor with this group. If you know anything about right-wing reactionary conservatives, they sort of have a thing for free speech, as they see it as a medium to restore their claim to American culture. Thus, in a multi-pronged approach, they began to work in a coordinated manner to bring their vision of restoring free speech to life. And in Musk, they found an ally. To digress a little, we all know that right-wing reactionaries don't really care about free speech as much as they care about the speech that they like. After complaining about cancel culture from the left for years, they have been the biggest cancelers of the last 4 years, from mouthwash canceling Bud Light for featuring Dylan Mulvaney.
There's no reason at all why we can't bankrupt Bud Light overnight.
To Ben Shapiro frothing in the mouth about the Barbie movie.
This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with dog shit.
To end wokeness, Sanovich censored men and their gang, canceling Kyle Rittenhouse for suggesting that he might not vote for Donald Trump, or in the case of Joe Rogan for simply saying that he liked RFK Jr. Safe to say, these guys have proven that they are not for free speech, but love pretending otherwise. Back to the alliance between Musk and the far right. Part of their very first step was for the newly converted Musk to purchase Twitter to use it as a platform to amplify right-wing voices. To make the contrast sharper, Twitter was painted by Musk and his right-wing allies as a cesspool of left-wing censorship where right-wing voices were deliberately and constantly being censored. The hyperbole reached a fever pitch with Musk offering to buy Twitter in response to the suspension of the account of his friend Babylon B. Musk's offer, which may have initially been a joke, took life of its own and soon became a reality. And even when Musk tried to renege on his purchase offer, he was forced by a court of law to see the deal through. Elon Musk, now stuck with an overvalued company with which he had no idea how to run, decided to convert it from a left-wing cesspool to a cesspool of right-wing religious nuts. He began instituting drastic changes, including changing the name of one of the most recognizable brands in the world, Twitter, to X. His obsession with the letter X, which often comes off as weird, permeates everything he does. Like a raging bull after taking over, he's wreaked havoc on Twitter, tanking the valuation of the company from $44 billion they paid for it to a measly $9.4 billion as of 2024. Saying Musk's running of X has been chaotic is an understatement. He prided himself in firing 80% of Twitter's workforce while still keeping the site running. But the truth is, the site is barely rolling and certainly not as efficiently. The first few months were chaotic with his $8 a month blue check subscription that caused Eli Lilly's stock to fall by 4.3% because a fake verified blue check account impersonated the company and tweeted that insulin was now free. How cool would that have been? To people not being able to change their profile pics or losing their blue check temporarily when they change their profile pics, to advertisers leaving the platform, and more recently, people massively exiting X. It was all a hot mess. Despite Elon Musk claiming that engagement on the platform is at an all-time high, most of the posts I see are from Musk himself, reactionary right-wing accounts, and the famous pussy in bio bots. I'm sure this is the experience of the majority of X users as well. Describing himself as a free speech absolutist, Musk began to reinstate formerly suspended accounts like that of Alex Jones, Jordan Peterson,
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, the whole 9 yards of far-right crazies. And don't tell me that Jordan Peterson isn't the far-right crazy. At the very least, he's crazy. On the other hand, censorship continued on the platform, especially against those who presented ideas that Elon Musk did not like. He shamelessly fired an employee who exercised his right to free speech by confronting Elon Musk on Twitter. No, nothing says free speech absolutist like firing someone for exercising their right to free speech.
Free speech is meaningless unless you allow people you don't like to say things you don't like. Otherwise, it's irrelevant.
Back when I first joined Twitter, I saw Elon Musk as an eccentric billionaire genius who was simply trying to have fun and connect with people using memes and jokes. He was the relatable billionaire, the man of the people who still had the time and humility to interact with the plebes. But it's become clear to me now that that was just a stage in the metamorphosis of what he was to finally become. Elon Musk had crafted this cocoon about himself, ever changing till he was ready to reveal his final form. And when the time was right, what emerged from the cocoon wasn't a pretty butterfly, it was an angry, vengeful monster, Moloch incarnated. In my analysis, I found that the ways in which Musk has blatantly and brutally appropriated free speech can be distilled into a few broad categories, such as right-wing bias, arbitrary content moderation, abuse of power, and the shameless promotion of a cult of personality. After fully taking over Twitter, Musk started implementing his grand plans to save free speech, and this included amplifying far-right voices, retweeting misinformation and disinformation from trolls, and censoring dissenting voices. The same things he accused old Twitter of doing. Elon Musk couldn't be bothered to do due diligence before retweeting patently false information. He once amplified an anti-Semitic tweet accusing Jewish people of pushing dialectical hatred against white people by responding with a post that said, "You have said the actual truth." There's been a resurgence of right-wing neo-Nazi, white supremacist, racist gripers on X under Musk. For the first time on X, I began to encounter the rapid proliferation of anti-Semitic content and rhetoric. Rhetoric about Jews controlling the media and memes making caricature of Jews spread unchallenged like a plague. None of these anti-Semitic content were ever censored or had their visibility limited. Accounts like Jake Shield, Nick Fuentes, and Ray daily and constantly engaged in spreading anti-Semitic theories. One particularly bothersome content I came across made the claim with the video that the gas chambers in Auschwitz were built after the Holocaust and that Jews were never gassed there. He claimed that the gas chamber theory was an invented Jewish story to gain sympathy. That content was allowed to be circulated on X, receiving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. Now, one could say, in keeping with the principle of free speech, that such content should be allowed, letting people decide for themselves what they choose to believe. But in an ironic twist of events, posts critical of Israel's actions in Gaza were routinely censored. So, what's that about? You can share anti-Semitic content, but you can't criticize Israel? It seems Musk and X has got it all backwards. Musk instituted censorship on X showed that free speech meant pursuing his personal ideological agenda, as his decisions on the platform have revealed. His political bias and bent weren't veiled, they were obvious and became much more obvious during the 2024 election cycle. His support for Donald Trump was brazenly unabashed, committing X's algorithm to Trump's favor while pouring in millions of dollars to ensure Trump's election. Elon Musk did very overtly and without query the very things that George Soros has been accused of doing covertly by many on the right. He quite literally bought himself a precedent. While Musk was posturing as a free speech advocate, releasing the Twitter files in a bid to prove censorship collusion between the government and big tech, X Under Musk has approved a whopping 83% censorship request from authoritarian governments. So much for free speech absolutism. Much like the time he told advertisers to go fuck themselves, only to turn around to complain and sue them in a bid to force them to continue advertising on X.
I hope they stop. You hope? Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself.
But
Go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
If you insult your customers, then they have a right to not patronize you. The first giveaway that Elon Musk wasn't concerned about free speech as much as he was about pushing his adopted ideology was his declaration to be a free speech absolutist. Now, anyone with two brain cells know that free speech absolutism is an untenable position to hold. And Elon Musk, immediately he took over Twitter, began to contravene the very principles of free speech absolutism. For example, he suspended an account which was using publicly available data to track his private plane, despite initially saying he won't. Musk, in defense of the suspension, tweeted, "Criticizing me all day long is totally fine, but doxing my real-time location and endangering my family is not." Now, I agree with Musk's tweet that doxing someone and endangering their family is not okay, but for a professed free speech absolutist, that should be an acceptable price for absolute free speech, because after all, the accounts used publicly available data. Musk himself experienced firsthand the impracticality of such a ridiculous position, and he did the rational thing: censor. If Musk is being consistent, he would have accepted being doxxed as a necessary risk of free speech absolutism, but he didn't. Musk is in effect expecting X users to accept harassment on the basis of free speech absolutism, while he himself cannot take similar harassments. Suspending the account that tracked his private jet was perhaps the most understandable aspect of Musk's censorship, since it had potential safety issues. But it didn't stop there. Musk proceeded to suspend the accounts of numerous journalists who were critical of him for no apparent reason. He suspended the accounts of reporters working for the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Voice of America, and other publications. Musk's Twitter did not provide any explanation to the journalists why he took down their accounts and made their profiles and past tweets disappear. But like a broken tape, Musk took to Twitter to accuse the journalists of sharing private information about his whereabouts that he described as basically assassination coordinates. He provided no evidence for that claim. Same doxing rules apply to journalists as to everyone, Musk tweeted, but none of the suspended journalists had anything to do with the doxing of Musk's private plane. That was simply the made-up excuse he gave for suspending them. Nothing saves free speech like suspending dissenting voices for arbitrary reasons. We all know why Musk suspended the accounts of those journalists. Despite his claim of being an advocate for free speech, Musk does not like free speech at all. While journalists were being suspended, literal griper white supremacist neo-Nazis were having a reunion party on X every day. At least in the old Twitter, there was some consistency in applying moderation. Elon Musk has done away with any semblance of consistent content moderation, replacing it with his feelings at any given moment. Soon after Musk took over, he releases the Twitter Files, a series of documents meant to show collusion between the US government and big tech in censoring free speech. The bombshell Twitter Files, far from proving censorship and collusion, revealed a very real moral struggle the moderators were having as they debated what to do with someone like Donald Trump. The Twitter Files did not show a conspiracy to silence Trump. Rather, it humanized those people who were tasked with making difficult decisions about a person as disruptive as Donald Trump. No wonder nothing came out of the Twitter Files. It wasn't a smoking gun, it was all fluff. In his latest iteration of arbitrary content moderation, Musk has instituted a ban on revealing the identity of the people behind anonymous accounts which happen to be entirely right-leaning, spreading disinformation, misinformation, and racially rage-baiting ex-users. I wonder what his buddy Peterson thinks about this move, since he hates online anonymity, referring to them as online demonic trolls. With X, the bias is very clear. Musk himself makes it a point of duty to herald the support for right-wing conservative Republican positions. He supported Ron DeSantis right off the bat, gave Tucker Carlson a platform, and donated massively to Trump's campaign. There was no hiding anymore. His contempt for Democrats and his love for Republicans became apparent. I kind of find this aspect of Musk refreshing, because rather than being vanilla and playing all sides, Musk picked his team and went all in. That's fundamentally admirable. Even if I don't like the team he's chosen, I like the fact that he's declared the team he plays for, so there is no ambiguity. Part of the concerns of old Twitter was that it routinely shadow banned certain accounts that didn't fit in with the liberal progressive agenda. Musk came in with a promise to not do the same, but unsurprisingly, he put shadow banning on overdrive. It's not uncommon to have a controversial post labeled "This post's visibility has been limited." Musk explained his approach by saying X guarantees freedom of speech but not freedom of reach. Now, you must see the irony in that. Anything artificially done to limit speech is censorship. Limiting the reach of certain posts is, in effect, censorship. Musk wants to eat his cake and have it. You're either for free speech absolutism in all cases, or you're for the reasonable position of content moderation in a balanced, contextual, and consistent manner. Musk wants the appearance of the latter while proclaiming to be for the former. Musk has been running Twitter like his personal fiefdom, arbitrarily changing the rules of engagement at his whim. Now, it's his property, he can do whatever the hell he wants with it. But when he's doing this in contradiction to what he's espousing, that becomes confusing. Musk has used his massive reach to amplify certain voices. He constantly reshares blatant lies and misinformation from notorious accounts, giving them visibility and legitimacy. His personal attacks on Kamala Harris, spreading misinformation about her and her policies, were clear examples of abuse of power by this emotionally underdeveloped man-child. He undermined American democracy in a way no non-politician has ever done. Many refer to Elon Musk as a genius because of his business and financial success, but his true genius lies in his unique ability to convince his lobotomized fans that he's the true guardian of free speech, while he does the exact opposite. Every brain-dead thing he does is met with cringe adulation. Additionally, his use of Twitter as a platform to promote his personal business interests has blurred the lines between free speech and self-promotion. He incessantly tweets about Tesla, SpaceX, and other ventures, which raises questions about the extent to which the platform is being used to advance his own agenda rather than fostering open and unbiased discussion. Free speech is complex, and while it is essential to protect the right to express oneself without fear of censorship, it is equally important to ensure that this freedom does not come at the expense of other fundamental rights, such as the right to privacy, dignity, and protection from harm. Elon Musk's ownership of Twitter continued to drive the conversation about the role of technology in shaping public discourse and the delicate balance between free speech and responsible content moderation. While Musk may delude himself into thinking that he's saving free speech, his actions clearly show abuse of power, inconsistent censorship, and appropriation of free speech for personal and ideological ends. Everything bad about old Twitter has only gotten worse under Musk. It's now much more politically biased. Censorship is on overdrive. The bots are reproducing asexually by the second. And most of all, the quality of discourse has been reduced to what is obtainable in a pub where everyone is constantly inebriated. But to Musk, this is the definition of success for X because he doesn't live in the real world. He lives in a fantasy world surrounded by yes men and men whom he holds power over, ever willing to do his bidding while constantly feeding his insatiable ego. But like the saying goes, nothing lasts forever, and these too shall pass. Just as I was about to finish writing this video essay, news came out that Elon Musk and MAGA were having a rift, and this has led to accusations of censorship by Musk. Certain MAGA accounts like Conservative OG and Laura Loomer reported the accounts being targeted by Elon Musk over disagreements on the issue of immigration. It all started when Laura Loomer attacked Trump's Speak for AI policy advisor Sriram Krishnan, a Silicon Valley venture capitalist of Indian origin. Describing the choice as deeply disturbing, she further criticized Krishnan on social media for supporting the extension of visas and green cards for skilled workers, saying it was in direct opposition to Trump's agenda. Musk, disagreeing with Loomer's position, responded with a post saying, "There is a permanent shortage of excellent engineering talent. It is the fundamental limiting factor in Silicon Valley." And this just set MAGA off.
Don't come up and go to the pulpit in your first week here and start lecturing people about the way things are going to be. If you're going to do that, we're going to rip your face off.
Vivek Ramaswamy further added fuel to the already blazing inferno with a lengthy piece on X, which can be summed up as saying, American culture celebrates mediocrity, hence the need to import skilled workers from countries that celebrate excellence. Now, you can imagine MAGA's reaction to this perceived insult, an insult which, by the way, they have leveled at black people for decades, blaming black culture for the state of black America. Now, Asians are returning the favor and MAGA are getting mad. But why? I always wondered whether those white people who thought blacks were inferior to them because of IQ and income also thought that they were inferior to Asians because of IQ and income, as Asians rank higher than whites on those two metrics. By every standard of consistency, Vivek is right. The problem is American culture. But certain white people like to separate themselves from the failures of America by saying it's black culture that doesn't celebrate excellence. Truthfully speaking, where would the US be today if not for its ability to attract and import talent from all over the world? The US has always been a nation of immigrants that has sought the brightest minds for its benefits. That's why it's great. If it chooses to do the opposite because the brightest minds now happen to be of Indian origin, then it would be doing itself a big disservice. The US imported an untold number of brilliant Nazi scientists from Germany after the end of World War II without objections, which makes me think that MAGA's whole reason for existing is to make America white again. And then talked about the return to meritocracy. They were talking about white people. They weren't talking about letting the best man have the job. They meant let the white man have the job. And there's ample evidence of this sentiment in the responses to Musk's and Vivek's posts. The Hemowak posted, there's an army of highly experienced, highly skilled white male programmers and engineers that have been overlooked, sidelined, given the boot, written off, and disillusioned in America in favor of H-1Bs, DEIs, and women in engineering that you have seemed to have completely ignored. Oren McIntyre said, turns out the waste that Doge wanted to cut from America was Americans. Then the racist post started pouring in. One account replied to Vivek, send Viveki reader salami back to India. It's people like this that we refuse to be called by another country nationality. The similarities end with pigmentation and hair color. We're nothing like them and don't worship cows. We don't keep rats as pets either. These were their thoughts all along. To return to a time where white people had all the power, privilege, and opportunities. First, in their worldview, DI means black, H1Bs mean Asian. DI is bad, H1B is bad, but meritocracy is good and desirable. On the other hand, Musk isn't for H1B visas out of the goodness of his heart for America. No, he's in it for purely selfish reasons. There's evidence that shows that the H1B visa system is exploitative of workers who work under conditions Americans will not accept because their visa status is tied to their continued employment in the company. Even Trump once admitted the visa program was bad for workers, but he's now for it, and I bet you he's not going to get called out on his flip-flop.
The H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
So, in summary, MAGA wants the H-1B visa program gone, not because it's exploitative, but because they take American jobs away from Native Americans, aka white Americans. And Musk, Trump, and Vivek want the program not because of the good it will do for America, but because they want to exploit talent from other parts of the world. Got it. Back to the feud. Musk, being Musk, a person who doesn't like being challenged, began to hit back at the MAGA crowd on X by targeting their accounts for censorship. Conservative OG posted, all of our influencers have now lost verification status as well as our own badge. Our brand did nothing. We spoke out against H-1B visas, and it appears that Elon Musk intentionally shut us out. Is this the new status quo for America's, quote, most free social media site? The nerve of these guys to complain about censorship on X just because they have now become the target of Musk's arbitrary censorship style. All the while liberal voices were being censored by Musk, they hailed him as a defender of free speech. It reminds me of this very popular poem. First, they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. To crown it all, an account called Autism Capital wrote a post saying his understanding of the feud is that Musk thinks MAGA Americans are retarded and don't like Indians, to which Musk responded, that pretty much sums it up. This was eye-opening. MAGA are in their finding out phase. They will soon come to the realization that they got conned by an oligarch who cares nothing about them but exploited their ignorance, bigotry, and anger to bring himself to power.